Welcome to a new daily top AskReddit video. Today's topic.
What is the scariest thing you've ever seen in your life that you can't explain? About 25 years ago, my now former wife and I were caretaking a house. We had been there for several weeks and we both noticed that we always had that feeling coming up the stairs from the cellar that something was going to grab you as soon as you turned the light switch off. Everything else about the house was normal. We slept with an analog wind-up alarm clock next to the bed, the kind that actually ticks. To set the alarm, you move a tiny third hand to the location on the clock face for the desired time. For example, halfway between 6 and 7 to awaken at 6:30. It's a physical process and there is very little way to get it wrong. We always had the clock set to wake us up at 6 a.m. It was not something we fiddled with on a daily basis. One night, the alarm clock went off at like 2 in the morning. Old school ringing bells. Both my former wife and I woke up absolutely terrified. I saw a small figure maybe 2 feet tall run out of the room. I thought I must have been crazy until my former wife screamed, "Did you just see that thing?" We both described it as some sort of small gremlin. When we looked at the alarm clock, we saw that the alarm hand had been moved from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. That's the whole story. Scared the fuck out of me. Have no explanation for it. Nothing else ever happened there but the cellar feeling persisted. I've tried to warn everyone. Goblins are real! Exclamation mark. Little green ghouls buddy. Fooick, this one actually freaked me out. I think it's the fact that there was a second witness is what gave me goosebumps. This reminded me of a weird story I was told when I was 13 by my uncle's friends Nate when we were camping. Apparently stopped at an intersection zoning out waiting for the light, he saw a small green devil type creature just run across the intersection and scurry into the tall grass. That was the whole story and it was weird but still freaked me out. The crazy part is Nate, my uncle's friend, fell off a cliff the next day slipping on a rope rappelling next to a waterfall and died about 6 hours later. While very scary to experience, I'm sure, the idea of some supernatural creature or spirit spending weeks trying to manifest making the basement feel all spooky, then finally succeeding at crossing over to the physical world, and the thing it does is go into your room to play a prank of moving your alarm clock up a few hours before disappearing forever again is very funny. There's a Japanese demon that sneaks into your room at night, removes your pillow, flips it over, then puts it back. It didn't happen directly to me, but it happened to my dad while I was a toddler. My parents' bedroom and mine are connected by a long hallway. You could see directly into one other room just by staring at the door of the other. So we being kids, we equals my brothers and me shared the same room. Our parents arranged their beds so they could lay in their bed and easily look across the hallway into our room. So one night, my dad stares into our room from his, and he noticed that from inside our room on the top side of the doorframe some ugly dark face upside down like a lizard on a wall was peeping from our room staring back at my dad across the hallway. He being skeptic thought he was just seeing stuff, until my mom asked, "Did you just saw that thing from the kids' room?" My dad instantly sprinted into our room only to find nothing there. That only happened at one time as far as I know. Oh fuck no. This whole couple sees the same inexplicable thing theme has got me fucked up lol. Once I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open. I could see the outline of someone standing there, but when I turned on the light, there was no one there. The door was still slowly closing, as if whoever or whatever had been there was leaving. Even creepier, my Nest fire alarm had illuminated in the corridor, sensing movement, but there was nobody there. Still gives me chills thinking about it. Nest fire alarms are creepy. I got an alert in the early morning hours of cigarette smoke in my room. No one in my home smokes, and there wasn't an open window. It was my pawpaw's birthday though, and he was a smoker till the day he died of cancer. Mine registered a particularly pungent dog fart as cigarette smoke. They're pretty easy to set off. I was riding my bike down a rural road when I was 9 and found a garbage bag filled with red sludge and white sticks. I thought it was blood and bones, but I had a very PG childhood and I had never even seen pretend blood and bones, so I had nothing to compare to. I told myself it wasn't what I thought it was. After all, why would there be a ripped open garbage bag filled with blood and bones? 2 days later I thought, look again, and if it is what you think it is, tell a grown-up. I biked back to the area and it was gone. I am now old and have watched enough to confirm, it was blood and bones. That's freaky. I have a disturbing story that somewhat connects with yours. I was going for an hour-long run down a gravel road back in 2013. It was a fairly well-known rural rail trail, but not too busy. The closest parking spot was a couple miles away at that point and I'm headed back to my car. In the distance I see some guy walking towards me. As I get closer, I can see him better but something feels off. It's an older guy, maybe in his 70s, while he looked clean and not homeless. His skin is grey, his eyes are grey, his hair is grey, he's wearing an all-grey sweatsuit and he's smiling. He's been smiling the entire time. The man is 200 meters away and smiling, not in greeting. Just a full-toothed grin walking down the middle of this path. He has a full black plastic bag slung over his shoulder. I start feeling really uneasy as I get closer, and then I begin to feel nauseous at maybe 20 feet away. I wave hi, but he's still in the middle of the trail. He's still smiling. He has no change in reaction to my greeting. I want to run the opposite direction, but that would be going further away from my car. I pass by him, running partially on the grass because he's still in the middle of the trail, and this massive wave of nausea passes over me and I nearly puke. The smell was so bad, I want to say it smelled like death, but somehow it was worse. I just start sprinting. Maybe 200 meters. I turn to look back, and the man is gone. It's a flat rural area. I can see for miles, and this man is gone, along with his black plastic bag. It still creeps me out to this day. So in college I studied in the UK. I lived in a house with a group of other American students that had stories of the ghost of a girl who passed away while living there. I never believed in any of it, but it was fun to play along. The kitchen had one way in and out, and right after you entered the kitchen to your right was a padlocked door to the cellar where she allegedly lived. I had the only key. We were all a little homesick near Thanksgiving, so decided to do a meal together. This required some creative cooking schedules due to small appliances in the kitchen, so one girl who didn't have class the next day offered to stay up late to get the turkey going. We went into the cellar the first, and only, time that evening to get larger cooking implements. At 2:04 in the morning, I wake up to my door rattling, like someone was pushing against it. I assumed it was a housemate who just went to the wrong door. About 30 seconds later, when I hear a scratchy female voice softly saying, "Hello," every 5 seconds or so. My window was open, and it sounded like it was coming from outside, so I get up to close my window as I assume it's some drunk girl walking back from the pub. I get to the window, and there's no one there, and then I hear, "Hello," clear as a bell behind me. My door rattles again, and goes silent. I've had night terrors before, and hallucinate when I have even a mild fever, so I assume I'm still asleep and lay back down. The next morning at 7 a.m., the girl who's cooking tells me, I had the creepiest night. At 1:50 I heard footsteps coming up the cellar stairs, then the door rattled. Then at 2:10 the door rattled again and I heard footsteps coming down. She told me this before I had said anything to anyone about what I'd experienced. The cynic in me says the girl was playing a prank on you and was the one who messed with you at night. Yeah, she was very specific and forthcoming with the times. Working in a nursing home for years during the night, and everyone always complained of weird stuff like noises on the top floor. I never believe in any of that, so I was always the one going upstairs to do night checks. One night I was changing a resident on that floor with a colleague, and my colleague complained he heard something like people walking. We were in the resident room and I had to go to the cupboard at end of that corridor to get bedsheets, and when I was coming back with the bedsheets I kept hearing steps and like if someone was touching and opening plastic bags. I was so annoyed and looked outside the room and saw a shadow passing the corridor. The issue is that the shadow was so big, like if literally a person just passed by, along with step noises and plastic bags. I freak out so badly and froze completely. I had to call another colleague to come upstairs because I was so scared of coming out of the resident room. Bear in mind that I do not believe in those things, and for 2 years I was always the one doing night checks on the top floor and bottom floor on my own. Never had any problem and never saw something. Since that day I never went upstairs alone and was always very scared. I have encountered a lot of strange things working at nursing homes too. My first job was in a nursing home that used to be a hospital. The old morgue was in the basement, but the door had been permanently locked since they converted it into the nursing home. The one time I had to walk by it on night shift, it was open when I walked back past it. Very unsettling. I took a contact to overhaul AV and security for an ancient funeral home a few years back. Never been spooked by the paranormal in my life, and that includes an overnight stay in a cemetery when I was a teen. I had to do my work at night due to other contract obligations during the day, so for about a month I was in that place from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. I was given the usual, "This place is haunted," spiel complete with all the stories and, "Avoid this spot," nonsense. In particular, the owner insisted that under no circumstances do I do any work in the morgue at night, and I didn't care to ask questions since I was already just about done with folks trying to involve me in the delusion. 2 weeks in and I hear what sounds like faint screaming coming from the morgue. No lights on, no cars out front, door is locked, never saw anyone go in or out. I ignore it for another week, but I continue to hear occasional screaming, and once I heard a man shout at the top of his lungs in the parking lot. I had finally had enough and decided to head in the next time I heard screaming. Opened the door, pitch black with a TV in the back of the long room tuned in to some 80s slasher. Instantly put me on edge. It's the only light and nobody was in there. I walk down the length of the room, and in the next doorway where they process the bodies, I see a faint light coming under the door. I am completely freaked at this point, but I continued walking towards it and eventually opened the door. I was greeted by the sight of a dead body in a room that looked straight out of a 60s asylum, and the mortician was standing there dumbfounded at the sight of me. Dude clocks that I am 100% cooked and busts out laughing. I was told not to go into the morgue because he works nights and they didn't want me disturbing him or disrespecting the dead. He lived in an adjacent apartment behind the morgue and enters using a back door. He keeps the lights off because he likes it better that way and enjoys watching horror movies on his breaks because the dude is on brand.